folks out there today. Hello. Hello. Hope you're doing well. Gail, Ricky, see if the Facebook people let us out. Wayne, Marcy, Patty, Teresa. Hope you guys are all doing great tonight. Kevin. All right. Well, we got a few people coming. You know, it's going to take a minute. Diana Blanton from Kentucky. Minnie, William. Hey, welcome. Hey, my name's Jim Crawford, and if you haven't been here before, you are at the Crawfordology. Like and subscribe, although it may do us no good, and they may not allow you to do it. People were telling me last time they can't even like us anymore on Facebook, that it just kind of cuts them away. So I hope you guys have been well since last week, and we're off to a new week. A lot has happened in the news, and we are talking about tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the police and the story that is really going all over the country, not just with the Chauvin case, but also with just about every locality, every police department. If you're a law enforcement officer these days, every decision you make is second guessed. You are Monday morning quarterbacked to death, really to death, to the point that you are almost could never be effective in your job if you choose to enforce the law, because doing so can put you at great peril. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, that there aren't cops that do bad things, make bad decisions. In fact, we're going to see some of that tonight. But before we do that, let me take you guys to, if you haven't been here, American One. Make sure you stop by American One. There's articles. In fact, we've got a couple articles up here tonight that we're going to visit, and we're going to talk about some things that are important. Mark White says, don't break the law. What don't you understand? Well, Mark, I will tell you, I was told by somebody that if the feds want you, you're breaking a law if you like it or not at any given time. There's some administrative rule, something that you're doing. I do agree, when you have an interaction with law enforcement, you should be compliant. You should do everything that you can to work with them and not against them. And look, these folks have a hard job. It's already their task is to take on the folks who are doing things bad, right? I mean, you go to work every day as a law enforcement officer thinking you're going to be put in the middle of somebody's terrible day, somebody's awful week, somebody's lowest point in life. Yet you are going to be second guessed these days by every video phone, every CNN reporter, every person who looks. Juan Williams today is saying what should have happened in some of these cases. I think he's talking about the Ma'Khia Bryant case, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So they have a thankless job to begin with. It's made more difficult when you have bad things happen, like the Derek Chauvin case. And we talked about this. Many of us had different opinions on what Derek Chauvin's case looked like. I'll tell you, having seen none of the trial, other than just moments, I felt like he was underrepresented in terms of his legal team. He gets a single lawyer, or maybe a lawyer and an assistant from the police union, while the state puts together, as you saw afterwards in the story, holy cow, they put together the dream team of prosecutors to make sure this went down. So if you believe in Chauvin or you don't believe in him, maybe you're a George Floyd supporter, A-okay. it's not good for policing when these sorts of things happen. So I want to go first off tonight, and I know you guys will love this. I know how you guys love when I share the president. So let's just hear from the president. Let's hear what he had to say. You know, how uplifting could the president be in a moment of national tension, of a moment where it's citizens against law enforcement, or at least that's what they want to project. And let's just hear how he heals the country.
Today, a jury in Minnesota found former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin guilty on all counts in the murder of George Floyd last May. It was a murder in the full light of day, and it ripped the blinders off for the whole world to see. The systemic racism the Vice President just referred to. The systemic racism is a stain on our nation's soul. The knee on the neck of justice for Black Americans.
All right, I have to pause this for a second, because I think you should have to be able to say systemic racism if you're going to have it put in your speeches. You should be able to articulate it. Systemic racism. I feel like there's a, I don't know, a moment from The Water Boy. You guys remember the guy who was like, systemic racism. Anyway, sorry, I'm going back.
Profound fear and trauma, the pain, the exhaustion that Black and brown Americans experience every single day. The murder of George Floyd launched a summer of protest we hadn't seen since the civil rights era in the 60s. Protests that unified people of every race and generation in peace and with
protests that maybe got him elected.
Enough of this senseless killings. Today's verdict is a step forward. I just spoke with the governor of Minnesota, who thanked me for the close work with his team. I also spoke with George Floyd's family again. A remarkable family of extraordinary courage.
Okay. All right, I got to stop there because I know many of you can't take this. And it's hard for me to take, not because I can't hear anything nice said about George Floyd. Look, as I said last week, terrible tragedy, terrible decision making, all around. I mean, unnecessary. I think we could all agree it was unnecessary to the extent that somebody lost a life. However, what the experts can't agree on is, what did George Floyd die from? Was it medical complications? Was it drug overdose? Was it asphyxiation? And we heard from 3 different experts during the trial, and they all 3 had different stories. The truth is, it should not be at the center of this national debate over if police officers are needed or not, right? So you may have seen this. So this is a Daily Wire article I'm going to share. Massachusetts Police Department apologizes for post-contrasting actions of Chauvin and Floyd. This is really great. I mean, go to the Daily Wire and read this article. Basically, the point is, hey, if George Floyd had behaved as Derek Chauvin did, after he was convicted, his bail was suspended, he was taken into custody, and he simply stood up and put his hands behind his back and walked into custody. He was resolved to carry out, the moment at hand. So one of the police officers says, hey, if he had done that, I wonder how different things would have been. I wonder how different. Chauvin immediately stood. This was what the Post said. Calmly placed his hands behind his back. Imagine where we'd be if George had done the same. Well, you can imagine the outrage, because look, that is totally rational. That's reasonable to say, what got us from point A to point B? Was it the officer was behaving irrationally? got out of his car and decided he was just going to grab the first guy? Or did he get called to a scene where something was happening, where there were people dealing with an issue, citizens who felt unsafe, and they wanted somebody to come and help them? So he comes. He does his job. If you can agree if he did it right or did it wrong, nonetheless, we saw the result. The Wall Street Journal today. So I want to share this, just a search on the Wall Street Journal, today's Wall Street Journal, for, let's see, what did I search? What did I search? It appears to have disappeared. Oh, okay, here we go. If you search the police today on the Wall Street Journal, these are the articles that pop up in the last last couple hours. Anti-cop movement wants road anarchy too. A measure of justice in the Chauvin trial. Dante Wright funeral draws calls for police reform. So is it reasonable that, you know, a couple of incidents make us go more and more towards this defund the police idea, this remove the rights of American citizen idea? And I want to share with you, so I showed you the Boston story here, where people are being, you know, beat up, figuratively, for having any sort of, I don't know if it's compassion for Chauvin, or if it was just really, I mean, was that not a reasonable comparison? But I want to take you here close to home in Norfolk, Virginia, and share with you here the executive police officer fired for legally making a donation. So if you look at this article, remember Kyle Rittenhouse, the teenager first responder who goes into Minnesota back during all the protest, and he comes in, he ends up shooting, he gets attacked, and to defend himself, he shoots 2 people and kills them. He immediately walks towards the police, hands in the air, trying to turn himself in. The police drive past him like, what are you talking about? So here we have a decorated Norfolk police commander has been fired for giving $25 to the Kyle Rittenhouse Legal Defense Fund. $25. William Kelly III, who was the commander of Norfolk Police's Internal Affairs Unit, is released, and he sends a message to Kyle: God bless, thank you for your courage, keep your head up, you've done nothing wrong. If you saw the film with Kyle Rittenhouse, you would be hard-pressed to say he did anything but defend his life. He was running away. Running, not even walking, running away, when 2 thugs come up and club him over the head with wooden skateboards. And you can hear them, they're angry. These folks have an anger and a hatred that isn't common. They're saying, let's kill him. I mean, it's almost something that you imagine being a little bit as if Neanderthal, you know, it's definitely an old hatred. It feels as if the evil that's represented when these people are talking is not of this world. And what they do is they start to beat him with these skateboards, and he rolls over and he shoots 3 of them, kills 2 of them. And all he does is gets up again and runs away. He's just trying to get away. He's trying to break contact and get away. Did he make a bad decision by going up there? Yes. Would he do it in hindsight? I doubt it. He was a first responder. He probably, you know, you're young. You think you can do things that you just can't do. You think you have power and control, that you can convince people to make the right decisions, to do the right things. And unfortunately, it's something that catches him. But here we have the commander of the Internal Affairs Unit. So this is somebody who actually looks at how law enforcement behaves legally or not. His job is to find bad cops and get them out. And he sees Kyle Rittenhouse and he says, man, this is wrong. I want to support him. $25, and he loses a 20-year career. He'd been actually on the force since 2002, a 19-year officer. So Norfolk City manager, to be true of the pandering few who get out here and all they want to do is pander to the stories, calls his comments egregious. He leaves a private comment and a $25 payment, and he says, you know, this sort of thing erodes the trust between Norfolk Police Department and those they're sworn to serve. So it made me think a little bit about our First Amendment rights. What rights do we have? Where do your rights end as a citizen to think and act in a particular way, to say that you believe, I don't agree with this? We see Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of those places censoring content, censoring discussion. When you kill the discussion, the only thing you do is by silencing one side, you create more tension. You create more frustration, and something's got to give. Something's got to give. At some point, things get ugly. So there's a couple of things that we can look at today and think about what is right and what's wrong. And I want to just give some examples. So we're going to watch some video. I want you to see the videos. Look, they're a little graphic. If you don't want to watch this type of stuff, I don't think we're going to see any blood or gore. But if you don't want to watch these sorts of things, I totally understand. We're going to start with Ma'Khia Bryant. This is the young lady in Columbus, Ohio, who comes out with a knife. The police are on the scene. He's called to stop. These people have called and said, there is somebody stabbing us. There is somebody trying to stab us. And the police pull up on the scene, and here's the chaos that they go into. I want to share this. It's about, let's call it a minute. Oh, hang on. I got to roll it back just a little bit so you can see it. So the police pull up. Here we go.
What's going on?
Now you see the fight. You see the girl coming out. She has a knife. So when you go through this, to back this up, you know, this guy here, if we go just a frame ahead, he's trying to kick this gal, right? I mean, the folks here are going through bad decision making. There you go. See him trying to kick her there. These folks have lost control of themselves. So the police are here. They have people all around. This girl has a knife. She is trying to stab this girl. The police has a very short period of time to make a decision. So he has to choose in seconds, is that stab going to be fatal? So this is where Juan Williams from Fox News says what he should have done is fired a warning shot. Do you think that girl was listening to anything that was going on? Has Juan Williams ever been in any of these tense situations where things like this can happen and escalate very quickly? I'm sure the police officer would have loved nothing more than to have been able to fire a warning shot, to have found a way to stop. Hey, why didn't these people who apparently know this gal, why didn't they stop this from happening? Why weren't they engaged? Well, let me tell you the story. So the young lady who was doing the stabbing was actually in a foster home. Her parents, who say she was wonderful and was an honor student, I know nothing about her other than to say she wasn't living with her parents. There had been problems in the home. She was a troubled young person. And here we have this sort of activity take place, and what in the world do you expect the police to do? How can they respond to something like this? How can they make a decision, you know, that quickly? I got to make this decision in seconds. And when I make this decision, I have to make the best decision I can make in a few seconds. So I want to go to another one because this one didn't turn out well. This is Daunte Wright in Columbus. Again, another situation where you have to ask yourself, you know, why did Daunte not just keep up with what the police were asking. So here we go. So what I want to show you here, and I'm just going to pause it for a second. So Dante breaks away from the police who are arresting him. His intent is to get in the car and likely drive off. So now we have, and I want you to notice here the sidearm. That's the taser, right? You see the taser on the left-hand side. There's an officer back here in the background who is preparing to fire. You'll hear her say, "Taser, taser, taser," and she shoots him. And then you'll hear a few words after, but you're not going to see the shooting. So you can hear, "I just shot him." Oh no. Yes, she's very stressed at this point. She knows she's made a mistake. So folks, this is the thing, is are we humans or are we not? This is clearly a case of an accidental shooting. If Dante Wright had been, and I don't know if he was on drugs, I don't know what was going on. So I just want to say, I don't know if Dante was in his right mind. Again, parents say he was a great honor student, he was a good kid. Folks, the best way to avoid these sorts of issues is to comply with the police. Do what they're asking you to do. If they're doing something wrong, if they're doing something that's going to get them in trouble, you need to take that to the judge. You don't try to resolve that when the guys have guns, and there are a lot of them. They face these sorts of incidents every day, and they don't know what your intentions are. Sometimes they have very little information when they go to the site. They're out on the scene. They're trying to respond. If you're irrational, you will get irrational responses from police. So the best thing you can do, if you're ever, I don't care if you're red, yellow, black, or white, comply with the police officers. Folks do not go into public service because they want to hunt down people. They do not go into public service because they believe that they are going to make oodles of money. They don't go into public service because they simply want to ruin your day. It's just not true. These people make sacrifices. They leave their homes, they leave their families, and every day, like I said at the beginning, they're going in knowing that what they're going to do is to deal with somebody in their greatest point of need, or at least there's a chance of that. They're going to find a trauma. They're going to find some incident where somebody's having their worst day. And their job is to come back and to try and help lawfully, not just protect the community, protect those people, even the people who are trying to do the harm, to protect those people and bring them in. Folks, we cannot be second guessing everything that every police officer does. If we do that, we are going to have such an exodus from law enforcement that we will be back to those movies in the Old West. I talked about it before, where they can't even get a sheriff into town, and the gangs are basically running the place. And let me tell you, folks, it's not far from that. Let's look at a couple of things for a second, and I think you'll appreciate this. So, Chicago Tribune, folks, this is the shootings so far in Chicago. 907. Folks, it's April 19th is the date on this. 907. There were 693 shootings in 2020 in Chicago. We have 907 in 2021. Now, a lot of people love to say, oh, that's the South Side. Well, right here's the heat map, folks. There you go. Look at the locations. It's all over Chicago. It's all over Chicago. It's at midnight. It's at 7 p.m. It's at 4 p.m. It's at 3:20 a.m. It's at 5 o'clock. All throughout the day. Look at the people. Look at the ages. 907. Folks, the cops are not the problem. The cops are not the problem. The other thing that I can tell you, I want to go back to American One, because here we also have another story that's breaking, and I think it's interesting to see. Los Angeles proposes a 3% increase in police funding amid calls to defund the police. Go read this story. There's, of course, a couple other things I'll hit here. LeBron, LeBron, you are definitely part of the problem, not part of the solution. You propose things that are preposterous. As a role model for youth, you're abhorrent. You not only give them very little to cling to, you talk about none of the positives, you talk about the poor, pitiful, oppressed. You talk about things that you never were, right? Since you were in high school, since you were in middle school, you were lauded upon and you were raised up as an athlete, as a hero of Ohio. And you take every opportunity to take every pot shot against any of the institutions that have protected you, that have brought you up. And I don't know why you do it. I really don't. I don't know why, if you're buying LeBron James jerseys, you would waste your money. Don't ruin your children like that. Go read this article on the LA mayor. I think you'll enjoy it. There's some really good insights here. Folks, taking care to make sure that we have things protected in our country is the job of the police. It's the job of the citizens too. And for us to protect their institutions and the things that help them to take care of us, it's your job. Speak up. Make sure people know. Make sure that people know that you care about law enforcement. And most of all, if you get pulled over, you get stopped, guys, just do what the cops ask you to.